Welcome to Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Barbee. I would like to encourage everyone on my Facebook friends list, everyone in my social groups, and all of my listeners worldwide. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button and share this video podcast with your friends, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel. It's free. Help make this video podcast go viral by posting this link on your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and or on your Twitter page. This video podcast is available in 3 forms: audio, video, and as a written text in order for us to reach our audience. November 10th, 2023 will mark our 32-year anniversary. We have upgraded our platform by moving from an audio podcast to a video podcast using StreamYard technology. We want to interact with our audience in real time through the chat room during our live podcast. I want to know if there is anyone on my Facebook friends list or in my social groups that live within the United States of America who knows how to do a professional fundraising. If so, please send me a message to my Facebook inbox. Stop the Genocide in American Ghettos podcast is our interactive Black grassroots media component. We discuss controversial topics that you wouldn't hear about from the mainstream media. We're committed to reporting truthful and accurate news. We believe that now is the time for a comprehensive new strategy and a new movement for Black people / African people. I use this platform to interact with everyone on my friends list and everyone in my social groups by giving Black business owners free airtime to promote their products and services. I give people in the faith community an opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I give Black authors and ordinary law-abiding citizens an opportunity to share their special talents to my listeners from around the globe. After the show, I offer my guest speakers an incentive by teaching them how to create their own podcast and YouTube channel to help them earn extra revenue. I also assist people on my friends list with creating basic websites, finding college scholarships, grants, housing, and legal services, all for free. I created a GoFundMe page last April 2022 as a crowdfunding source so that everyone on my Facebook friends list and everyone in my social groups would know exactly where the funds will be going. This will also indicate our progress in getting this film project fully funded and made. Out of 1,788 people on my Facebook friends list, only 5 people have donated to our film project on our GoFundMe page. Black people, African people, we gotta do better. This is for the sake of our children. My film project is my last attempt to try to do something positive for my racial group here in America before I cut and run to Africa. At this time, all I can do is news commentary. We host our virtual conferences every last Saturday of the month until we are able to raise the capital to fund our film project. Hood Liberator Made in Chicago, The War Against Willie Lynch Begins, is a solution-based docudrama which is based on my experience growing up in the inner cities of Chicago and the purpose why I created GERCAM. This is our Black Panther moment, except it's not owned by Disney, it's owned by us. We want to get this film in front of 500 million people worldwide. We will offer a 21st century solution both domestically within the United States of America and throughout the diaspora. GERCAM is my gift to Black millennials, Generation Z, and my group members worldwide. my hope that we can eventually create our own black film industry, black hair product industry, and sporting industry. All I have at this time is my revised book, my virtual store, my online groups, and this platform. I recommend that if you're serious about working with me and turning my vision and plan for Black America into a reality, then purchase my revised book and read my story for yourself. If you agree with what I'm trying to do in the African American community, then make arrangements with me to come on this podcast so that we can talk about it. I'm using this technology to broadcast my vision and plan to all who will listen. This is my hope that the African immigrant community in America would come forth and work with me first in getting this film project fully funded and made so that we can build Grakai of Chicago together and making our presence known within the African American community, starting in Chicago. Then expand to 10 African nations. This is for credibility within the African American community, throughout the diaspora, and sending a strong message to the Black world. I don't operate like the next black man. I have my own style and way of doing things. I reach out to Black America, online and in real life, for the past 31 years. Now my focus is on reaching out to African immigrants within the United States of America from the following African nations: South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, Angola, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Nigeria. Stand up and work with me. The sooner we get this film project fully funded and made, the sooner we can build Grakai of Chicago and expand to Africa, starting in South Africa. Once the proceeds from the docudrama starts pouring in, then I will be in a better position financially to purchase property in Chicago, buy office equipment, and hire qualified Black middle-class professionals and African immigrants within the United States of America. I will run my Christian business the way I run my home, drama-free. The Grassroots Community Activist Institute of Chicago mission is to eradicate urban violence in Chicago through art, culture, commerce, spiritual development, and hosting African tours in 10 African nations. We're going to meet people from my African group, Grakai of Africa. I will bring the best of the diaspora with me to each African nation so that we can set up local chapters and do international trade among our people. We will reconnect Black entrepreneurs with African entrepreneurs, Black artists with African artists. In this Christian business, our objective is to heal from enslavement and colonization. Since Black America / Black Chicago has overlooked and rejected my vision and plan for the past 31 years, my Christian business will be membership-based. I am only responsible for my members. Those who are not part of us, we will pray for them, show them tough love, and keep it moving. Once we have a physical building in place, we will hold mandatory orientation for new members and local residents. Everyone must pass our criminal background checks, sign the community pledge, and submit their thumbprints to be placed in our database. We will separate ourselves from con artists, degenerates, off-code Negroes, pedophiles, and urban terrorists. Upcoming events. Please mark your calendar for our next Grakai virtual conference, Saturday, September 30th, 2023. Theme: what is the purpose of building Grakai of Chicago? Where? Facebook Live / StreamYard. Time: 2 p.m. through 3 p.m. American Central Time, 3 p.m. Canadian Time, 8 p.m. West African Time, 9 p.m. South African Time, 10 p.m. East African Time, and 8 p.m. UK Time. Instructions on how to participate on the show. First, watch my video podcast. This is called Side A. After I finish my presentation, then I will open up the phone lines through Facebook Messenger. This is called Side B. You can interact with me in real time, either by voice call by clicking on the phone icon, or by video call by clicking on the camera icon. Today's topic of discussion is as follows: the African American community taking an L on the immigration crisis in New York and Chicago. The coal in West Africa, what does this mean for the rest of Africa? Our first topic, the African American community taking an L on the immigration crisis in New York and Chicago. We're going to start with New York City. Mayor Eric Adams. Mayor Eric Adams stated a year ago that his city was a sanctuary city. After a year of illegal migrants coming to his city, now he is saying influx of migrants, quote, will destroy New York City, unquote. According to a video clip entitled Mayor Eric Adams says migrant crisis will destroy New York City. If you would like to watch the full video, then I encourage my listeners to follow me on my Medium page. Look for the exact title of this presentation, then click on the topic and scroll down to show and prove. Basically, to sum up what the video is saying, New York City Democrat Mayor Eric Adams has sounded the alarm on the strain that migrants is causing in New York City. The busloads of migrants being sent up from southern states are pushing the city to the limit of its budgets and resources. At a town hall style meeting on September 6th, Adams said, quote, let me tell you something, you New Yorkers, never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an end to. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City's, unquote. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott decided he wanted to bus migrants to sanctuary cities like New York City. 110,000 migrants. Adams has been a vocal critic of both President Biden and New York Governor Kathy Hochul for failing to provide resources, funding, and expediting work permits for migrants and asylum seekers. Adams projected that the city budget gap could grow to $12 billion. The scope of migration in the city. The city has seen an influx of 110,000 migrants since last year. New York City has a mandate that it must provide shelter to anyone who needs it. And the migrant surge has led to the opening of 200 emergency sites. Criticisms. Murad, the executive director of the New York Immigration Coalition, criticized Adams, quote, the comments are uncalled for. Using dangerous language sometimes leads to dangerous actions, and we don't want people put in that situation. So it's important that leaders understand how to communicate, not put people's lives on the line, unquote. The Legal Aid Society and the Coalition for the Homeless said, quote, his comments dehumanize and villainize people who fled unimaginable situations in their home countries merely for an opportunity to provide for their families and secure a better life, unquote. The strain on schools. There are 1,700 certified bilingual teachers fluent in Spanish across the city, 1,900 public schools, but the enrollment of 20,000 migrant children in New York City schools has tested the system. The city has attempted to create some sort of plan, but there is still just not enough here. just not enough resources to go around. New York City Mayor Eric Adams declared a state of emergency over an influx of migrants sent to his city by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott during a meeting with administration officials in Washington, D.C. last Friday. He requested that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is FEMA, stop sending funding to cities that ship migrants north. He also called on emergency federal and state relief. Activists have decried Governor Abbott's move and argued that GOP lawmakers use asylum seekers and migrants as pawns in political stunts, undermining their humanity and autonomy. Adams said that New York will be responsible for spending at least $1 billion by the end of this fiscal year on the migrant crisis alone, and that the influx of unexpected migrants is putting a strain on the city's resources. City officials project that they will spend at least $4.3 billion on the crisis by June 2024. Adams said, quote, "There was never any agreement to take on the job of supporting thousands of asylum seekers. This responsibility was simply handed to us without warrant as buses began showing up. Adams explored FEMA to act. Quote, "We need real leadership from FEMA. This is a national crisis. FEMA deals with national crisis. FEMA must step up, and there should be one coordinator to coordinate everything that is happening dealing with migrants and asylum seekers in our country," unquote. Adams has criticized Biden's response to the crisis in New York. Well, Washington, it's time to respond. Enough is enough. Abbott has been sending buses filled with migrants north before the midterm elections to increase support among his anti-immigration voter base. Abbott's action mirrors Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who flew asylum seekers north to Martha Vineyard, Massachusetts, in September 2022. Republican leaders like Abbott and DeSantis are trying to highlight what they perceive as a failed border policy of the Biden administration. Governor Abbott said, quote, "Adams talked the talk about being a sanctuary city, welcoming illegal immigrants into the Big Apple with warm hospitality. Talk is cheap. When pressed into fulfilling such ill-considered policies, he wants to condemn anyone who is pressing him to walk the walk," unquote. Abbott has spent over $14 million sending more than 10,000 migrants to cities, including self-proclaimed sanctuary cities like Washington, D.C., New York, and Chicago. More than 17,000 asylum seekers have been bused to New York City since the spring. A vast majority of the migrants are from Venezuela. Adams said that once the more recent crops of asylum seekers is processed and given shelters, the city will have the highest recorded number of people in their shelters system. New York City currently has more than 61,000 individuals, almost 20,000 children in its shelter system. New York City has set up a, quote, tent city emergency relief center where asylum seekers can rest and get assistance. The vast majority are seeking legal permission to remain in the U.S., often citing poverty, cartel violence, and environmental degradation as the source of their bid for asylum. If you have watched the video clip, you heard him say that New York City is a sanctuary city. Notice, Mayor Eric Adams did not say he wants to hold a town hall meeting and see what New York City residents feel about their resources going to people who are non-citizens. He wants to maintain a democratic policy. If you vote Democrat, then that includes the immigration policy. The Republicans are not promoting that policy. I support Republicans all day when it comes to immigration and the border. I agree with Mayor Eric Adams that they have a $12 billion deficit. As a result, they're going to have to cut services that's not fair to New Yorkers or Chicagoans, but this is what black voters voted for. The Biden administration is not supporting him. He's not getting federal assistance from the government. Now they're calling Mayor Adams xenophobic. I give Eric Adams credit for admitting that they can't handle the influx of immigrants bused to New York City. Since New York City is a sanctuary city, they cannot deport them. The Democrats also have to take accountability for having a policy that does not line up with the federal laws. Notice we tend to see xenophobic behavior during an economic crisis. A lot of Americans are struggling, and they feel more immigrants coming to these cities will have to compete with them for resources. In contrast, in the city where I live, Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson is calling on Chicagoans to make sacrifices for illegal migrants coming to the city. He proposed raising taxes and cutting the budget to help pay for this out of our taxes. According to Tyrone Muhammad, these immigrants are getting involved with criminality. He also said Chicago has spent $76 million on illegal migrants in Chicago, yet none of that money has gone toward assisting the local homeless population in Chicago. Over here, we don't do propaganda. We tell the truth and provide receipts. When I said back in 2020, during the election, you get what you vote for. This is what I was talking about. I found an article from Fox News entitled, quote, Chicago mayor plans to relocate nearly 1,600 migrants from police stations to tents before winter, unquote. If you would like to read the full article, then I encourage my listeners to follow me on my Medium page. Look for the exact title of this presentation, then click on the topic and scroll down to show and prove. Basically, what the article is saying is that Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson plans to relocate the city's nearly 1,600 asylum seekers, migrants, currently living in police stations to winterized camps with big tents before winter. In an interview with the Chicago Sun-Times, Johnson said the relocation will happen, quote, before the weather begins to shift and change, unquote. Each of the massive tents will be able to hold up to 1,000 migrants, the mayor said, and under his plan, the camps will provide meals as well as recreational and educational programs. He did not offer any specifics on the cost. Black Chicagoans, this is what you voted for. None of those resources are going towards your family or mine. It's going to other people who are not supposed to be on the soil. The Democrats are in favor of open borders and sanctuary cities. Notice these black mayors are secretive about taxpayers' money, yet they are not saying their city is no longer a sanctuary city. For example, Mayor Eric Adams said $12 billion is being taken away from the city budget in order to fix the migrant crisis. Then you have Mayor Brandon Johnson saying he's either going to have to raise taxes or cut the city budget or both. Again, this is the policy of the Democrats. The Biden administration is not giving Chicago or New York millions of dollars a month to handle the migrant crisis. These politicians don't care about taxpayers nor American citizens at the end of the day. Black voters, when you vote for these Democrats, you are willfully participating in a situation like this. Notice, we didn't have these issues under Trump. How is Democrats better than Republicans when the Democrats are draining your bank account? Inflation is on the rise and food prices are constantly increasing. If you continue voting for Democrats, these issues will continue. When are these black mayors going to take a stand and say, I have to protect my city, no more sanctuary cities? It appears that they tend to be more concerned about upholding Democrat policies than they care about American citizens. If they're serious about fixing the migrant crisis, then demand an end to sanctuary cities and policies. In America, we have approximately 330 million people, and we also have a housing crisis. Why should we accept more people without building more affordable housing first? These Democrat cities and Democrat policies is harming Black America. The Democrats don't give us anything specific for our group, yet they dump other groups in our communities. So we have to compete for resources. Notice all of these resources can go to non-citizens, but when we start talking about reparations, then that becomes an issue. We as Black people have to examine every policy that these politicians are promoting. Notice they're not promoting any policies that give us federal protection. Even after Jacksonville, they're not saying a word. The white supremacist financial elites are using non-white people in these positions of power to carry out a white agenda. The Asian community focus on their economy, working together as a unit. This is what I want us to do in GRCAM. Practice group economics, starting with getting my revised book on that bestsellers list so that the Black world would take us serious. My brothers and sisters in Chicago and in New York, this immigration issue is a democratic policy which is affecting the African American community. Keep in mind, we got 2024 elections coming up. We gotta get our voting in order. Y'all voted for Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York City to be a sanctuary cities. Don't complain now that you don't have the resources for the newly arrived immigrants, and more are coming. As a result, now more of our services will be affected. These cities don't have the infrastructure to handle mass migration. These liberals claim to care about these migrants, yet they only view them as a bloated as a voting bloc and political pawns, but they don't want them in their neighborhoods. Joe Biden said his top two priorities are immigration and LGBT rights. That's what Black Americans voted for. As a result of not listening to my advice and demanding tangibles from these politicians during the 2020 election, now look at all the mess that we're in. During the 2020 election, I encourage my listeners and group members who live in America to vote for Trump after Bernie Sanders lost his campaign. Now we're already seeing the results. Questions: do y'all want your children indoctrinated by the public school systems? Do y'all want to be locked down in your apartments or homes again? Black Chicagoans and Black New Yorkers are all of a sudden upset that our resources are being used for migrants. Yet these same people vote 90% for Democrats, no matter how much they ignore our interests. These migrants are running here voluntarily. They are the ones who decide to flee their homeland instead of fixing their problems in their homeland. Until Black America change our voting habits, I feel like you get what you vote for. Once I'm able to get Greco Chicago established, we will teach our members and students the ins and outs of politics in order to produce smart Black voters who will vote based on policies that will help Black Americans. Because not every Black person will be able to just up and leave America due to our economics. We will teach financial literacy while promoting Black economic empowerment. Our Black youth have been indoctrinated by the educational system to relinquish their ability to be critical thinkers when it comes to politics. Black youth have plenty of opportunity to do whatever they want to do until they turn 18. Then they tend to be uninterested in getting involved with politics. They tend to blame older people for not allowing them to be involved. Well, over here, GACAM, we welcome Black youth and others to be a part of this new movement in Black America, Africa, the Caribbean, and Brazil. Immigration is an orchestrated social contagion created by the white supremacist financial elites in order to neutralize the Black vote. This started back during the 80s during the Reagan administrations under the terms amnesty. The Reagan administration gave millions of undocumented people amnesty. We had a chance to get it right during the Democratic primary between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. I warned Black America about Biden's track record and his 1994 crime bill. I encourage my listeners and my group members who lived in America to demand tangibles from both political parties, Democrats and Republicans. Black Americans decided to listen to Representative James Clyburn. He told Black Americans to vote for Joe Biden. Now look at all the mess we are in today. As a result, we're going to have other people coming over here, and eventually we will have to take marching orders from them and learn their language and culture because of this slave mentality within Black culture. And that's why I'm saying these off-code Negroes is making it hard for us as Black Americans to continue living here in America. That's why I'm doing the best that I can to get this business up and running so that way we can expand it to the African continent to give Black parents options. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just going to be rough living here. Eric Adams is frustrated because there's nothing he can do. He's part of that political Democrat machine that's not going to allow him to do right by New York City voters. And the same for Brandon Johnson. Eric Adams is trapped by his allegiance to his political party, the Democrats. The only thing that can solve this issue is federal intervention. Republicans want to build that wall, but the Democrats was against it. I believe there should be no sanctuary city in any black neighborhood. Why are we also allowing sanctuary cities where they're rewarding people for breaking the law? If only 40% of black voters would vote for Republicans in the 2024 election, the Republicans will win the general election in a landslide victory against Joe Biden. We have one last chance to get it right politically. Black Americans have the power to do two things. First, punish the Democrats for lying to us and swindling us for the past 60 years by voting for Republicans. Secondly, by voting for Republicans, this will halt the influx of unchecked immigration. A majority of black Americans who are off code are allowing our children to be targeted by this system. Under the Democrats, America could end up in World War III and getting nuked by foreign countries like China and Russia, all because of American policies. My goal for creating this platform is to connect with other like-minded black people, African people, and others who are serious about solving black issues in America and throughout the diaspora. I also encourage my listeners to purchase my revised book and work with me in turning my vision and plan into a reality. First, by getting my revised book on that bestsellers list and donating what you can to our film project. I lack two things: the capital and the manpower. That's why I written my revised book. And that's also why I'm trying to create this film project, so that we can move from behind the computer and do all the things which I have written. Without support from the black grassroots and the global African family, I am unable to do my job. Truth be told, black America don't want a solution. Otherwise, it would have not taken me 31 years to get my Christian business up and running. But it is what it is. I'm trying to build Ghettos of Chicago, which is more than just a new business endeavor. It's going to also be a new system, because the current system we're under is corrupt to the core. I hope and pray that Ghettos Chicago would become a franchise across the United States of America and internationally, just like McDonald's. For example, Carlos Slim has a home base which allows him to run cell towers around the globe. Amazon also started out online, and now it has a physical location around the globe. We're never going to get reparations with our voting patterns, because we don't talk to the Republicans about our issues, and the Democrats are going to continue to ignore us because black America vote for them 90% of the time without making any demands for our vote. This is our political dilemma. Black America needs to talk with both Democrats and Republicans and select policies which will benefit the African American community as a whole. Please leave a public comment on my YouTube page about the topic. Most of all, share this video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. Our second topic: the coup in West Africa. What does this mean for the rest of Africa? A lot of things have been happening on the African continent, specifically in the Francophone nations. Francophone nations are French-speaking countries that was colonized by France. The president in Cameroon and Rwanda have rearranged their military for fear that they may be overthrown. African leaders who have remained in power for decades are getting worried that their military could turn on them and cause a coup. They want to insulate themselves from becoming the next overthrown leader in Africa, similar to that of the Arab Spring during 2010. The African youth are beginning to question what are these African leaders doing for them and their country. French colonialism has wreaked havoc on the African continent for centuries. France and other Western nations continue neo-colonization while giving Africans the impression that they are independent because of the former colonizers do not want to give up the valuable resources in Africa. The post-colonial French-African Pact were agreements imposed on African leaders. They were tricked into turning over 80% of their reserves into the French treasury. 14 African countries who still pay a colonial tax to France to this day. A colonial tax amount to $500 billion annually. These countries are Benin, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Guinea, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Ecuador, Guinea, and Gabon. When these African nations need money to develop their own infrastructure, the French would charge them interest to borrow their own money. This is a clear case of predatory lending. Guinea refused to re-sign the French-African Pact. France retaliated by almost destroying Guinea's economic infrastructure. They were able to get support from Ghana. The uprising against France started in Guinea, Mali, and Ghana. They were calling for a unified Africa. They wanted Africa to merge their markets together and have a one army to fight against neocolonialism. I believe Africa has good negotiators who understands geopolitics. They should use this opportunity to advocate for better deals. African people need to make sure that they don't elect corrupt leaders in power. There should be an overhaul on the current infrastructure, and it should be replaced with a decentralized system which has a group of leaders who come up with a consensus on key issues. What Africa needs more than anything is to create their own system different from the European model. I encourage my group members in the Ghettos of Africa to work with me in connecting with African immigrants within the United States of America. That will help speed up the process for me to come to Africa and establish Ghettos of Africa on the continent. I believe Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Gabon should unite and form a confederate nation and use the pre-existing countries as states under a confederacy. It's an opportunity for them to develop a new curriculum and get rid of the post-colonial studies, which is useless. African youth need new skills and technology. If the kind of Africa was established in West Africa, we would focus on converting those raw materials into finished goods and become the largest gold reserve in Africa. Gold is important because the dollar currency is under threat due to BRICS. BRICS is a grouping of the world economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They want to create their own currency to compete against the dollar. We could then trade and sell our finished products at market rate in the global community. This would improve the living conditions of African youth and their families. Ghettos of Africa would train our members and students and give them financial resources in order for them to develop new markets in Africa, which will help improve the African economy. For example, West Africa has oil reserves. Ghettos of Africa would create courses for our members and students who want to learn petrochemical engineering. The post-colonial agreements where Western nations suck African resources dry is coming to an end because Africa now has options like doing business with China, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. The African American community can also play a vital role in shifting through our African tours and connecting Black entrepreneurs with African entrepreneurs, Black artists with African artists. We can build an alliance with the 10 African nations and turn around our inner cities in America while improving the African economy through tourism, music, entertainment, investment, etc. If we look at these coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Gabon, these coups had popular support from the people. Over 50,000 people in Niger have signed up to defend their country. I believe the people in Niger have made a clear statement that needs to be respected. Look at the hypocrisy of ECOWAS with the case of Ivory Coast. The president changed the constitution so that he can run a third term. Nobody's threatened to invade Ivory Coast. That's also a coup. You don't change the constitution after your term runs out. Why is ECOWAS quiet on this issue? Why is ECOWAS quiet about Cameroon president staying in power for over 40 years? Anybody that suppresses the will of the people to stay in power is part of a coup. ECOWAS need to look at what they are doing and understand that they cannot impose anyone on people. As more African nations break away from French colonial regions, they're going to team up with those other nations. This is the time for every African to stand up and fight for what is rightfully yours, your land and your resources given to you by God. Please leave a public comment on my YouTube page about the topic. Most of all, share this video podcast with your friends. This will help get the ball rolling. I would like to thank everyone who has contributed or will contribute to support us on our PayPal page, purchasing items from our virtual store, purchasing my revised book, or sending a direct donation through our GoFundMe page. We appreciate your support. You can find all of the links below this video podcast in the comment section. If you're listening to this audio podcast on Anchor/Spotify, just click on the YouTube icon and select the About section. Then scroll down to links. Peace and blessings.